Hello, thank you for watching the first video of Geopolitical Geeks and Random Thoughts. My name is Aaron Workington. My co-presenter is Brian Lamb. We're both sort of armchair historians and armchair foreign policy, researchers, I guess you can say. So we're going to be talking about in each video different type of international situation beyond the shores of the United States. And we are not purporting to be any experts. We just enjoy reading this stuff, and we want to give context behind these different kinds of stories or different stories being presented. Oftentimes in the news media, it's difficult for them to give historical or cultural context for a lot of these situations. So we want to provide that. And please feel free to leave comments. It will be moderated by Brian and myself, and we want to hear what you guys think as we continue to progress with these videos and have interaction with the wider world. Brian?
Exactly. Yep. So we are not experts by any means of the imagination. We're just kind of reading things and seeing, and basically trying to interpret it with the best information that we have. So the first subject we're going to talk about is a pretty thorny subject in that area of the world. It's the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict that just recently ended with a ceasefire. By some historical standards, this is the third war for the region between the two. In 1918 and 1920, there was a series of short wars before the Sovietization of Armenia and Azerbaijan. There was a second war after the Soviets basically Soviet state collapsed from 1991 to 1994, and so 2020 is technically the third war in this region. The third war basically was fought by Azerbaijan against Armenia. The Azeri forces are supported by Turkish troops, some drones, and from what I've read, some Islamic jihadis that were brought over by Turkey as well to help with the Azeri side. The Armenian side was basically on their own. They do have a defense pact with Russia. However, I'm not sure if there's really any Russian involvement in the actual conflict.
Although we must bring up the mention, what was it, several days before the ceasefire, wasn't there the Azerbaijanis shot down a Russian helicopter in Armenian territory? Is that not correct?
That is correct, yes. So The question is, so there were talks happening before the ceasefire actually happened. So there was talks going on in the background before the Russian helicopter got shot down. So it'd be interesting to know, which no one will ever know really, as to whether or not the Russians kind of put the hammer down and said, hey, we need to solve this now, and imposed an agreement on the two sides before there's any more damage to our own troops, or if there was actually already a framework for this ceasefire before that happened.
And of course, Russian troops are being used to help ensure the ceasefire. It's related to, let me give some quick context to and background. The Nagorno-Karabakh region is actually internationally recognized as being part of Azerbaijan, but that small district or region is mostly populated by Armenians, and so they have a cultural and religious link to Armenia, the internationally recognized state. And the difficulty is this ethnic group of Armenians want right now that don't they have some kind of like sort of unofficial republic in that area?
Yeah, I did read that. Well, I think that it's been an autonomous region. It's been kind of a semi-autonomous region, an independent region. It's been a mix over the last 100 years or so. The interesting thing is that I was reading that the ethnic makeup of the region in 1823 was 90.8% Armenian. By 1989, granted, that's 163 years, so we're not talking about a quick change by any means. It was down to 76% Armenian, but and 23% Azerbaijani.
But they clearly feel that they do not belong with the Azerbaijani state. They feel that they...
Correct, right.
Yeah. And then to throw in a wrench into the machine, Azerbaijan has an exclave, which is a separated section of their nation, which is cut off from them by Armenia itself. So they have basically the only way, the link that Azerbaijan has with this other part of their country is by flying over Armenia. So,
Correct. Yeah. And
so
so it'd be interesting aspect of the ceasefire is that is is the way the ceasefire is structured basically going to create a future conflict in the region?
well, and with Russia tacitly supporting Armenia and Turkey doing the same with Azerbaijan, both of these nations, of course, want, some amount of influence in this part of the world, the Caucasus and the Middle East. So,
Correct. So it's a big mess. So let me bring up a map here of the current. Once the ceasefire the ceasefire has already taken effect actually. So this is the current map. Just share the screen here.
Which, interestingly enough, once the prime minister of Armenia signed that ceasefire a week ago, his own population almost lynched him.
Yeah. There's a lot of hardliners there who want to continue fighting. Although it's hard to say whether or not militarily they'd be successful because it looked like Azerbaijan was getting the upper hand in this conflict, at least for this. But if you look at this map here, the extension of the gains, which are in red here, this is all flat land. So a lot of the terrain they took wasn't physically intimidating. If this conflict had continued and gone into the mountainous regions, who knows what really would have happened, or if it would have stalled out, etc.
Well, I also read that Azerbaijan in the last 10 years has invested billions into its military, and that they may have felt they had sort of reached the apex of their ability to take on the Armenian forces in their own territory. So they felt they had, it was sort of, they had either took the land back or they allowed the Armenians to strengthen their position in their internationally recognized borders.
So as part of this ceasefire, if you can see my mouse pointer on the screen, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So all right. So there's going to be a transport link from this red area to Azerbaijan's island territory. I'm just going to call it an island territory because I'm not really sure what else to refer it to. So there's going to be an Azerbaijani transport link from here to here. And then as part of this, there's going to be this yellow area right here is going to be guarded by Russian peacekeepers so that Armenia actually has a transport corridor to Nagorno, their section of Nagorno-Karabakh.
Which is within that
the yellow area.
Yeah. The yellow box, yeah.
Which is interesting. So I mean, this war, the Armenian side lost almost 50% of its territory. If I'm looking at this correctly.
Yeah.
So it's a big mess. I mean, there's a lot of ethnic tensions. There's ethnic tensions. There's religious tensions because Azerbaijan is primarily Islamic and Armenians, what is it, Orthodox Christians? Or?
Yeah. So Eastern Orthodox. I think they actually have their own group called the Armenian Orthodox Church.
Oh, okay.
If I'm correct. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you throw all of that into the mix, and it's a pretty nasty conflict.
And with President Erdogan of Turkey kind of reasserting the belief in sort of a pan-Turkish, pan-Islamic sort of coalition. I mean, they feel very invested in being seen as a protector of Azerbaijan.
Yeah, and there's also, because of the ethnic conflict and religious conflict, there's also, reminiscences of the Armenian genocide as well in this whole conflict. So it's not surprising that Armenians want to fight to the death on this.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point brought up because although the region, the idea of the Nagorno-Karabakh region, that all goes back to the beginning of the Soviet state. The ethnic and religious struggles with these groups goes back 1,000 years.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
you not only layer on that kind of historical legacy, but then you put in the political, the remains of the Cold War, the remains of the Soviet Union, and you're probably looking at another conflict within the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, unless the Russian peacekeepers can stay there and keep the two sides separated,
Yeah.
or weirdly, and the group that was responsible for mediating peace talks after the 1994 war was the Minsk group, and so that involved Russia, the U.S., and France. I don't know if Turkey was in that or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the Russia, U.S., and France. Although my question is why is France even interested in this? I don't know what their historical connection to this is, other than being a mediator.
They could have been seen as a third party.
Maybe, yeah.
Protected party because they have no investment in the Caucasus area. I don't know. It's just although well, anyway, that's speculation. I was going to throw out the speculation because remember before the 2001 invasion of Iraq, remember the French, several French oil companies had already signed big deals with the Ba'athist government in Kurdistan and northern Iraq. But
that might have something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's conspiratorial.
Yes. Well, do we have any more points you'd like to touch on?
No, I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years.
I agree. So that's the end of this podcast. If you feel free to leave a comment in the window or subscribe. And next week, we're going to be talking about the RCEP trade agreement in China and Taiwan. Fun and thorny subject.
Thank you very much.